On today's video, we're going to be talking about Florida's internal migration. That means people that are moving in the state of Florida, but they're not leaving the state. As we all know, Miami has become extraordinarily expensive. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Miami can run you about $800,000. And this has prompted a lot of people from Miami to leave. Over 2,000 people left to the Cape Coral, Fort Myers area, followed by Orlando, Jacksonville, Sarasota, Tampa, Ocala, Palm Bay. For the most part, people that are leaving Miami are not leaving the state of Florida. There's still a lot of people going to North Carolina, but for the most part, many years back, people that were leaving Miami were heading to other states. That has stopped. People are realizing that they like the state of Florida. It's just the city of Miami they can't afford. And they've heard bad news from people leaving Miami and ending up in other parts of the South. Since the vast majority of people that leave Florida leave to other parts of the South, people leaving Miami are starting to avoid the South and move to other parts of Florida, which has led to an internal migration of people leaving the Miami area and just settling somewhere else like Sebring, Ocala, Lakeland, Sarasota. Most of them are going to consider first the Ocala area for its affordability, but Ocala is a city that doesn't have a lot to offer. Sure, you can literally get a 3 or 4 bedroom house in Ocala for about $300,000. That's about half the price you would pay in Miami, but there's nothing in the Ocala area. Incomes are low. There's really no beaches or natural things to do, and North Central Florida is stuck in an overdose crisis. Thus, people that are leaving Miami and ending up in the Ocala area are finding it's really a crime-ridden crap hole with nothing to do. Lots of crime, lots of homelessness, lots of addiction. Many people that are leaving Miami to the Ocala area are also finding that it's somewhat similar to the Deep South, where it's really not that welcoming. Thus, one of the best things that people leaving Miami are doing is ending up in places like Sarasota or Naples, where they're still in Florida. It's still cheaper than Miami. They're going to make higher incomes, and they're not going to have to deal with this whole stereotype of the hate that people have towards people coming from Miami, which is a huge problem in the Deep South and in the Ocala area. Now, people are still moving to Miami at an incredible rate, and the prices that they are paying to live in Miami is what's outpricing a lot of the long-term Miami residents and forcing them to move to other parts of the state. We're talking over 6,000 people from New York are still moving to Miami, as well as other large cities in the United States. But there's a question mark. There's something missing from this equation that I don't think a lot of people, especially YouTubers, are missing about Miami. And that is that these are just U.S. cities. The strongest component of Miami's real estate market is not U.S. cities. It's people from Latin America. And thus, this list of people who are moving to Miami, it really doesn't represent the whole picture. These are people moving to Miami from the United States, but the vast majority of the power of the money that is moving in Miami's real estate market is not coming from the United States. So while a lot of people think about people from the north moving to Miami, in reality, it's people from Latin America moving to Miami. One thing that I do not like about what's happening in Miami is look at these cities: Washington, D.C., Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit. These are very high crime rate cities. That means that the people that are moving to Miami now from these American cities are leading to increased crime rates in Miami. And the same thing can be said to a smaller degree of the people that are moving to Miami from Latin America. In other words, yes, these people are all moving to Miami. Yes, it's leading to increased real estate prices, forcing out the locals. But look at the cities these people are coming from. They're cities that inherently are going to have higher crime rates. One really overlooked aspect of Miami's real estate market is the fact that a lot of the money that moves in Miami isn't coming from U.S. cities. It's coming from other countries. Like in the suburbs of Broward, you have Colombians. In Hialeah, you have Cubans. You have Haitians, you have Dominicans towards northeast Miami, northwest Miami. Central Americans are taking up what used to be historic Little Havana. In South Miami, you got Bahamians, Jamaicans, you got Argentinians, you got South Americans all in the Kendall area. Along the water, you got Brazilians, Russians, Jewish, and Miami Beach now has Mexicans. And all of this money from Latin America is pouring into Miami Anybody that has money right now in Latin America or the Caribbean, as Latin America becomes unstable, is putting all their money into the city of Miami. You literally have an entire continent that is pouring all of their investments into the city of Miami. People from Venezuela, Argentina, you got people that have 30, $40 million, and they'll just go to Miami and buy 5, 6, 7 houses simply because they're trying to get their money out of Latin America, because they are afraid that those countries are going to become unstable in the future. Most of Central and Latin America right now, the entire South America continent, is under threat. Like Salvador recently going after their gang members has led to gang members from Salvador ending up in just about every single country of Latin America. It is absolutely a mess right now in the Americas. So everybody that has money wants to get it out of Latin America, and they're all putting that money into Miami. And that is really the largest component that has led to Miami getting so expensive. And they're not talking about this. They're saying, oh, New Yorkers and San Francisco's and all that. But that's not really what's driving the force of Miami's ridiculous real estate prices. It's people that are taking their money from places that are literally on fire right now and putting it into Miami because it's the only place in the United States where they feel that there's a community where they can kind of have real estate and feel secure. And that's what's causing a lot of people from Miami to have to move to other places. All the money from Haiti is in Miami. All the money from Cuba is in Miami. All the money from Argentina, they just recently got a new president and people are scared. All that money from Argentina is now coming to Miami. All the money from Venezuela was already in Doral in Miami. And thus we could go on and on about all the money in Latin America going into Miami as a place to hold these investments. So what a lot of people in the United States are failing to understand is that when Latin America is on fire, part of the housing shortage that we have here in the United States, the fact it's gotten so unaffordable to live here in the United States right now, has to do with the things that are happening in Mexico, Colombia, Haiti. Americans feel like, well, if we just deport these people, then we don't have to worry about what's going on in Latin America. But in reality, one of the main reasons that housing has become so expensive in the United States, in particular in the state of Florida, is because of the international affairs that are going on in other countries. So if you think these global problems are not affecting you here in the United States, you need to understand that as conflicts unfold throughout the world, and Latin America has never really had that problem. In fact, you had Americans moving to Costa Rica. You've had Americans moving to Ecuador. Ecuador went from being one of the safest countries in Latin America to now being one of the most dangerous, literally overnight. The country of Salvador used to be a stronghold for gangs. The new president, Bukele, started to arrest all of the gang members. Sure, that made Salvador a more safe place, but many of those gang members that were in Salvador fled to Cuba, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and now those gang members are being harbored throughout the entire Latin America, and they are going to contribute to crime and delinquency. And thus, we're going to see those countries go into turmoil because of the gangsters that left Salvador. For example, people leaving Sarasota are ending up in good areas in the south, but people leaving Miami are not going to the south. They're staying within the state of Florida. Take the city of Naples. It's no longer New Yorkers who are buying the most properties in Naples. It's people from Miami that are outpricing people from the United States, cities like New York, Boston up north. They're no longer the biggest group or even the biggest player in the real estate market. It's people from Miami now. And people leaving Naples are predominantly staying in the state of Florida, with the number one city being Sarasota. That's what I did. I moved to Sarasota, and it's possibly one of the best choices you can make if you're thinking about leaving Miami or leaving South Florida. Both Naples or Miami, Sarasota is a great option. It's a great city. It feels tropical like Miami and Naples, but it's more affordable. You still get that South Florida vibe, but you don't get that South Florida price tag, at least not to the same degree. Once you get past Interstate 4, I don't recommend moving up that way. I don't like the vibes. It's literally like living in the deep south, except for you have some of the highest drug overdose death rates, crime rates, homelessness. North Central Florida is literally becoming a crap hole. If you're looking at leaving South Florida, you should really study these health indicators like drug overdoses, unintentional deaths. North Central Florida is becoming a complete crap hole. So if you are leaving Miami, my advice to you, don't look as far as Ocala. Look somewhere around like Sarasota, Venice, maybe Cape Coral, just somewhere within the Southwest Florida area, and don't go too far from Miami, because once you get up into North Central Florida, their analytics of general health are really bad. We're talking high crime rates, high overdose death rates, high homicide rates. Living up there right now is like living in a zombieland apocalypse. And you're used to living in like South Florida, so you're going to leave behind this beautiful tropical area and end up in some freaking middle of nowhere woods in Ocala, let's say. You're just not going to be happy with your decision. I know economically you're forced to end up in that area, but really it's not a decision you're going to be long-term happy with. It might give you some relief momentarily economically, but in the long term, trust me, you're going to have your regrets. I'm glad to see this shift towards Southwest Florida and not so much towards North Central Florida, because really you're going to regret it. And the Orlando area is quickly becoming another Miami, so it's not just the snowbirds, it's also people from South Florida that are making these areas expensive as well. So a lot of people assume that it's only people leaving the cold that are buying in Florida right now, but that's not really the reality. You have the Latin American factor, you have the fact that people are getting outpriced out of Miami, so then they're moving further into Florida. And as well, people in Sarasota, when they leave the state of Florida, when they consider leaving, they're not moving to other parts of Florida. They're pushing it into the deep south. So you understand that there's like different levels to this. You got Latin America, you got Miami, you got South Florida, Central Florida, and then finally people that move completely out of the state. It goes in stages. We can expect the Sarasota area to become somewhat of a little Miami in the future, and that will be great for Sarasota, I think. Sarasota is high on the list of cities that people leaving Miami are going to, and it's the #1 city that people leaving Naples are going to right now. So with people from Naples and Miami moving into Sarasota, those are the types of people you want to attract to your city. So this is going to make Sarasota a very strong real estate market in the future. And already I'm starting to see a lot less inventory in Sarasota. And I think as HOA fees continue to increase in South Florida, that Sarasota is going to have kind of a tightening on the real estate market. And Sarasota is a great city. Incredible beaches like Siesta Key, beautiful waterways. It's still warm enough in the winter. It really should be the clear choice for people leaving Miami and Naples. There's a lot of YouTubers that are making videos about Florida's real estate market like if they were professionals, and they're missing the biggest component of why South Florida is getting so expensive, and it's that Latin American money. Once you understand that all this money is just going to be pouring into Florida because crap's going really bad in Latin America, then you understand that like cities like Sarasota or Port St. Lucie, places that people leaving Naples and Miami are going to be considering moving to, those are the types of places that now are going to have more potential in the future. So Miami is just going to become kind of like an empty place. Like the population in Miami is now starting to reduce, and a lot of people are saying that is a negative thing. There's less population in Miami. That's because the people that are buying these houses are just buying them to hold them as investments. And people in the United States are doing the same thing too. Don't think they're not in on it. A lot of people leaving Naples are ending up in places like Sebring, Jacksonville. I think those people are going to have some serious regrets. You're talking cities that have significantly higher rates of poverty, cities that have significantly higher crime rates. If you are leaving South Florida, I'm telling you, please consider a place like along the coast of Tampa, Pinellas County, Manatee County, Sarasota County, somewhere along the water where it's not exactly Naples, but it's somewhat like Naples. You'll still have access to the beaches and those awesome coastal vibes. Because when you're ending up in Ocala, Gainesville, Sebring, Jacksonville, cities with higher crime, lots of poverty, your life is going to feel like it's miserable because you're really downgrading your life. Sure, you might be able to breathe economically, but there's more to life than just being able to breathe economically. You live in Florida to enjoy the best things the state has to offer. Once I left Naples and ended up in Alabama, I was like, what the crap did I just do? I left one of the safest, nicest places in America, and here I am with these uneducated, violent, dangerous, addicted people, and I'm just like, it's not that you feel like you're entitled or you feel like you're better than other people, but dude, there's a difference between leaving a city like Naples, Florida, everybody's educated and well off, and finding yourself in some crap hole in the South. Just really give that some thought. Like, if you're gonna find another place, find a place that has something to offer. At least in the Carolina mountains, you're trading the beach for the mountains. You're getting natural scenic views. You're getting something different. Like, there's something about the place. But I'm telling you, these people that are moving to Ocala, Sebring, bro, you're putting yourself in a place where you have to be a very boring person to find it satisfactory. But hey, that's up to you. I just dropped a video about Polk County, Florida, and what I thought about people moving to Polk County. That's the Lakeland area. A lot of people leaving Miami are leaving towards Polk County because they believe the sheriff and it's safe and all that. Bro, Polk County is a crap hole. And a lot of the people are saying, you only show the bad side of Polk County. You're not showing the nice neighborhoods. I'm like, bro, I've lived in Sarasota, Naples, Lakewood Ranch. I've lived in some incredible places. What the crap do you think I'm going to find amusing about Lakeland, Florida? Because they're saying, you're only showing the worst parts. You're not showing the nice parts. Do you think the nice parts of Lakeland, Florida can compare to the worst parts of Naples? Get the crap out of here. It's a whole different world. And my warning goes out to the people that are leaving Miami right now. Bro, you live in a decent place. Don't let all that crap you hear people tell you. You don't know you don't know anything, bro. If you've lived in South Florida, you lived in Miami your whole life, you don't know what's out there, okay? Miami is a very safe city. Most people are Latin America. We're hungry. We're hustlers. We came to the United States to make a better life. When you find yourself in one of these backwards little places, bro, I'm telling you, you're used to the food, you're used to the safety, you're used to the decency of people. When you find yourself in these other places that are out there, bro, you're going to say, what the crap did I just get myself into? Because them people ain't like us, bro. If you've spent your whole life in Miami, the music, the culture, the warm people, the food, the music, just the positivity, just like the embracing of like the American dream and all that goes down the toilet. When you find yourself at an intersection in Ocala and you got a woman begging over here, you got somebody over here using a kid as bait to panhandle, and you're gonna realize, like, bro, this ain't really like what you're used to. You're used to a certain environment in Miami, bro. You're used to the vibes. You're used to people just being lively and vibrant, and you find yourself in one of these miserable places, bro. These people, they don't smile. They don't eat good food. They go home and eat the same potatoes every day. Like, they're not like you, bro. They're a different breed of people, and you're probably going to have some real freaking depression if you leave Miami. I understand the affordability issue. I understand that life for us here in South Florida is very difficult and challenging, but I want you to understand that you need to find a place that has something to offer. Don't settle for no freaking crime-ridden Jacksonville. Don't settle for no boring, nothing to do Ocala or Sebring. Like, find a city like Sarasota, maybe something else that has something to offer. If you're buying a house cash, maybe even along the Florida Panhandle if you're adventurous. Panama City Beach is beautiful. Okaloosa County has good analytics for being in that part of the state. It's still something to offer you because, again, you may not be aware of how you get used to this South Florida life. We as Latin Americans ended up in Florida because we don't have any other choice. These people that are moving from up north are moving to South Florida because of the warm weather. They really don't have too many other choices if they want warm weather. So Florida is a place where everybody wants to be. And that means that everybody's willing to work that much harder to be in Florida. It's not like Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana. Who the crap wants to live in those places, bro? People want to be in Florida. They want to enjoy the palm trees. They want to enjoy the vibes, the warm weather. And that's why people are willing to work that much harder for it. And that makes life hard exponentially for everybody here. And I do understand that. But particularly if you're Hispanic, Nobody here is going to trip you up and try to ruin your life and try to take what you got from you to make sure you can't have it. But when you move to Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and they see that you're from another country and you got more money than they do, bro, they're going to come at you in a very wicked way. They're not going to be content with you being Colombian or Cuban or Mexican and having all this money, having new cars. You know, when they see somebody like us from another country and we got all this money, it bothers them. It stings them because they don't have our motivation. They don't have our hustle. And they don't understand that the rich people that have all the money, they don't want to live in freaking Mississippi. They don't want to live in Butthole, Alabama. They want to live in Miami because we create better communities. The reason Miami is a great place to live is because we created a freaking great place to live. Our culture, our vibes, the safety, all that comes from our demographic. And you got all these news networks telling people, oh, the Venezuelan gangs are, bro, Doral is one of the safest cities in all the United States, okay? So they're creeping in this ideology of scaring us of our own people. Don't be scared of your own people, bro. Look up the murder rate for Doral, Florida. It's literally one of the safest cities in the United States. Why do you think the Donald Trump golf courses are in Doral, bro? See, this is one of the safest places in the world. You think these rich people are going to put their freaking golf course in Alabama or Mississippi? Not a chance in the world. It's going to be in Miami. So don't get it twisted with like the fact that in Miami, most of the media and radio is coming from that angle of all the Venezuelan gangs. Bro, actually look at these analytics. Hialeah is one of the safest cities in the United States by homicide rate and by overdose rate. But have you ever heard that mentioned? They're never going to tell you that. Doral, Florida is, again, one of the safest cities by homicide rate and by overdose rate. That means that there's not too many people being killed, but when one person gets killed, they make it national headlines. You know why? Because they want to make Venezuelans, Cubans, Colombians, they want to paint us like monsters, and we are stupid enough that we believe the narrative that they're feeding us because the local news networks are just believing everything blindly. These guys most of these news network guys out of Miami, all these America TV, those guys don't even speak freaking English, bro. Those guys, those pro-Republican Cubans that go on there and talk about Venezuelans and Cubans and this and that, those guys don't even know English. Okay, do you understand that most of these pro-Republican Cubans, if they moved to Alabama, where I used to live in Alabama, they would literally get killed by the Klan. They're supporting ideologies that they don't even understand. If they move to real Trump America, somewhere in Missouri or Kentucky or Mississippi or Alabama, those pro-Trumpers would literally kill these people just for being Hispanic. Crap, half of them don't even know freaking English. So you have these people that are Cubans and Colombians, Venezuelans, and because they hate communism, they want to become super Republicans, but they don't know that if they actually move to Republican America will quite literally kill them just for being Hispanics. But unfortunately, most of Latin radio in Miami is coming from that angle, coming from that perspective, and they're telling you that you need to be afraid of your own people. No, bro, your own people are the ones that are there to protect you. Okay, Hialeah is one of the safest cities in America. It's broke. There ain't no incomes because they make it hard for us. But one of the reasons they're able to make it hard for us is because they're the ones feeding you the narrative that is destroying you, and you're the one spreading your own narrative that destroys you. They're telling you that Hialeah is a dangerous city. Hialeah is not dangerous. It's poor. Let me tell you this. If you gave those same income analytics to any other community in the United States, their murder rate would be 20 times higher than Hialeah. If right now people in Naples, Florida tomorrow woke up with the income analytics that the people in Hialeah have to live with, their homicide rate would go up tenfold because they couldn't stand the pressure. Okay, we have a difficult situation. We're the ones that make it difficult for ourselves in a lot of ways. Again, a lot of money is coming from Latin America, but one thing is to understand where the crunch is coming from, and another thing is to buy into a narrative that's basically a lie. You think because you're a U.S. citizen, bro, or this, when you move to Mississippi, when you move to Louisiana, when you move to Alabama, when you move to freaking South Georgia, to them, you're not a Cuban, you're not a Puerto Rican, you're an illegal Mexican. And if you have a driver's license, they'll spit on your driver's license. Your U.S. citizenship paperwork, they'll grab it and they'll crumble it and they'll spit on it. To them, you're not a Cuban or Puerto Rican. You are an illegal Mexican. That is the mentality that these people in the South have about you. But then you're so stupid that you're letting them influence the way you look at the world, even though they think that you don't even deserve what you have, your U.S. citizenship, your rights as an American citizen. All these Cubans in Miami that are spreading this ideology, if they move to a small town in Alabama tomorrow, their house will get burned down in a week. I know the package that we are being fed is not an easy package, but I'm telling you, stick to South Florida, find somewhere that might work. Look, the city of LaBelle starting to grow. I'm not going to tell you it's the best place to live, but you got LaBelle, you got Fort Myers. I lived in Fort Myers and it sucked. I'm going to be honest. To me, Sarasota is a much better city. I've lived in Naples, Fort Myers. I think Sarasota and Bradenton are good middle class cities for people. And I'm certain that like Orlando area is doing a lot of great things as well. I think Lakeland and Tampa are not looking that good. I would stay away from Lakeland and Tampa. The Kissimmee area is similar to Hialeah. It's a place that has a bad reputation, but if you actually look at Kissimmee on paper, it's not a bad place at all. It has that aggressive vibe, but it really isn't like that. If you look at the analytics, it's not looking bad. But once you get into mid-central Florida, but once you get out in them rural communities around Ocala and all that, then people are living a different way and they view you a different way. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't think because you're a U.S. citizen or you speak English that they're going to look at you like you're one of them, bro. They're going to look at you as an illegal, bro. They're going to disrespect you. And here you are kissing up to these people, trying to pretend to be like them. And they're looking at you as if you don't even freaking belong here, bro. So you're giving all this respect and credibility, and you're standing up for their ideologies, and they're looking at you like you're a freaking illegal, bro. Como basura. So I'm gonna be honest with my Latin people, bro. We gotta wake up to the idea, the reality, and the truth that we don't have an option. If you're Latino in the United States, you can live in New York, Texas, Florida, California. If you step a foot outside of that, or maybe Chicago, bro, you are freaking dead. The analytics, if you go into floridahealth.com, you can look at it by race. If you see the analytics for homicide rates for Hispanics that are living in Putnam County, all these little counties, Columbia County, all these little counties in North Central Florida, bro, you're being killed at a rate 10, 20 times higher than you would in Miami. So don't think you're just going to move to one of these small little rural communities and then people are going to even let you freaking live, bro. Like, the reality is they don't like you, they don't want you, and they're going to come at you in a passive-aggressive behavior. They're not going to call you a name. They're not going to, you know what I'm saying? They're going to come at you in a very finesse-type manner. A lot of us Latinos are not even aware at the way they're coming at you because they're coming at you passive-aggressive and they're dealing you some bad cards and you're not even aware of it. I was just talking to some Cubans that moved to Georgia and they're like, well, they're making me do all this paperwork to get my driver's license. I'm like, bro, you don't need to do all that to get your driver's license. They're doing it to you because they're disrespecting you because you're Hispanic. Other people that are moving to Georgia as well, you know, they're trying to make them go to high school. But they went to school in Cuba, okay? So they went to school in Cuba. They went to university in Cuba. They're like a certified person. Like, they finished their school. They finished their high school. They finished their college in Cuba. Now they moved to Georgia, and people in Georgia are saying, you can't really get this job. We're not going to, you have to go back and do high school. You have to go back and get a GED. You don't have to get a GED. You already finished school in Cuba. But what they're doing to you in these places is that they're just not letting you get ahead. So if you're leaving Miami, bro, and you're Hispanic or this or that, them people ain't gonna let you have a chance. You gotta stick to Florida, whether you like it or not. And this is where we're seeing this trend where a lot of people are moving to Kentucky or moving to Tennessee or moving to the Carolinas. They're holding back on it right now. And they're saying, okay, we're going to move within the state of Florida. We're not going to go over there because they're starting to realize when you go over there, what actually happens to you. All right, so what's up with Tampa right now? Something very interesting happening in Tampa is that it's the only city where people are moving south. People leaving Tampa, the number one place they're going to isn't to the north. It's actually to the south, to Sarasota, collaborating what I'm telling you. Look, the number one city people leaving Tampa are going to is Sarasota. 700 people leaving Tampa, the number one place, are heading to Sarasota. It's kind of odd that instead of heading north, people leaving Tampa are heading south into Sarasota. That is kind of going against logic. But Tampa, despite being in South Florida, you could say almost, is starting to look like a city in North Central Florida. Tampa has a huge homeless population. It's kind of an older city, so it's kind of run down and decrepit. And what's happening now in Florida with the insurance costs, all these new regulations that are going in, is that people want new home construction. Tampa's an old city. They're old houses. People don't want to live in old houses and old neighborhoods. Tampa has a lot of problems. It has a homeless problem. It has a human trafficking problem. It just isn't looking good. It's an older city that's literally run down. And thus, the city of Tampa, despite having a fairly low homicide rate, despite having fairly low overdose rates, it's still not a city you want to end up in. So if you're leaving Miami, I think you should really skip on Tampa. Most people from Tampa are either heading to Town and Country, Homosassa Springs. They're moving just a little bit to the outskirts of Tampa. They're coming to Bradenton and Sarasota. So the longtime residents of Tampa are leaving the city core of Tampa and heading further into the outskirts. And that's not happening because of affordability. That's happening because Tampa is going to crap. I think one of the elements that really drove home the idea that Tampa's going to crap is that all these people from New York that couldn't afford Naples, couldn't afford Miami, ended up in Tampa. So you got all these wannabe Miami New Yorkers. They couldn't afford Miami. They couldn't afford Naples. They couldn't afford Cape Coral. You got all these poor wannabe Florida New Yorkers that ended up in Tampa. They drove up the cost of housing, but they also didn't have great income analytics. A lot of them ended up in vagrancy, homelessness. A lot of them didn't even realize that when they moved to Florida, their incomes wouldn't be what they were in New York. So all the long-time Cubans and Puerto Ricans and Colombians that were in Tampa are either moving to Riverview, Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, just somewhere in the outskirts. Some are coming to like Ruskin, anywhere like outside of Tampa. Some are heading north into Pasco and Hernando County. A lot of them are coming to Manatee County. A lot of them are just going to the outskirts of Tampa, like somewhere like Parrish, just outside of Tampa. So take it as a clue that if the longtime residents of Tampa are leaving to the outskirts, that things in Tampa are not moving in the right direction. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you live in Tampa and you disagree with me, let me hear your opinion. This is just what I think. I think that a lot of these New Yorkers that invested in Tampa, whether it's housing or job opportunities, they disproportionately did not want to work with the Latino community, and they kind of kept all the investments to the white side. Because when I look at the analytics of Tampa, it seems like a lot of things were not benefiting Latinos economically, and most of the investment and money moving in Tampa was coming from New York. So you would think that it would benefit the Latino community, but it seems like there was kind of a division between the investment and the Latino communities, which led to many Latinos in Tampa being economically deprived. And that's just my own personal opinion. I can't really prove it. It's just what I think by looking at the income analytics and how there's this disparaging gap in Tampa now between the whites, especially the whites that are recently moving to Tampa, and the longtime residents of Tampa, which are finding it that it's no longer feasible for them to stay in Tampa. Everything's going up except their incomes, but disproportionately, everything is going in one direction, and it's not in the direction that's for them. So despite the fact that Tampa had always kind of been a good place for Hispanics are starting to leave Tampa. They're moving to the outskirts, which is good. I mean, it's good that the Hispanics are moving into the suburban areas, but I don't think they're doing it willfully. I think they're doing it because things have gotten so hard in Tampa economically, with no job opportunities being offered, and as well as there's just a bad element that's brewing within the city limits of Tampa. I mean, Tampa's an old city, it's compact, and just a large percentage of that city landscape is bad neighborhoods, lots of strip clubs, lots of just bad environments, and most people that, have been in Tampa for 20, 30 years, they may not want to raise their families around that environment anymore, you know? So yeah, I can say that at least in the case of Tampa, it looks like there's been a fragmentation of segregation almost, where, you know, it's broken down into 4 groups now. You know, you have Hispanics, blacks, like normal white, and then you have these rich white, and now you have the city of Tampa fragmented so much that it's just not holding together very well. 2 elements to that: the riots around the guy up there that got killed. Those riots, you know, they burned down the Foot Locker, they robbed the convenience stores. A lot of the like people at that moment were like, hold on. I'm investing money in your African American community, and then you're gonna burn my grocery store after I invested in your community? I'm not gonna invest in your community, which has pushed a lot of the black population in Tampa further into East Tampa. A lot of the investment that was going to the African American community stopped hitting the African American community. So there's been some type of like fragmentation, is what I would call it, of the races in Tampa, which has really led to Hispanics leaving to the suburbs, African Americans pushing further into East Tampa. And then you got the stupid New York investor element coming in at the same time, right? All these people from New York investing money in Tampa, and when they start investing money in Tampa, a lot of them just kind of discarded the Latino communities. So it's almost created a situation where like most of the old money from Tampa and people that are from Tampa are now heading to Riverview, Brandon, Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, Bradenton, Hernando County, Pasco County. It's just a lot of people have literally had to leave Tampa because it's not working for them anymore. The other 2 areas that I'm just going to cover briefly is Orlando. As you guys know, there are now more Puerto Ricans in Florida than there are Cubans. Most of them are around the Orlando area. I think that has made the Central Florida real estate market great. I don't think it's ever going to get as ridiculous as Miami, so don't worry about that, Orlando. The difference is that Orlando has a lot of space to grow, and I think Orlando's going to continue to grow, but at some point you got to make a distinguishment between good places in the outskirts of Orlando and crappy places. There's great places: Lake Nona, Oviedo. The Kissimmee area, if you're okay with an urban area, isn't bad. And then it pushes all the way into Ocala. And I think with the Orlando area, which is so expansive, I mean, you're talking from Ocala to the villages, just Central Florida is huge right now. But there's still a lot of places for it to grow. It's just about knowing which areas that are growing are good and which areas that are growing don't have potential. Like Marion Oaks outside of Ocala, place is abysmal. I personally wouldn't end up there. The Orlando area is going to be hit or miss. But when you take in this information, like in the case of Miami, where they're saying, oh, the Miami's population is decreasing. Now, a lot of YouTubers are making videos, Miami's population is decreasing. This is horrible. I'm like, yeah, that's because the people that are from Miami are being forced out. And the people that are moving into Miami are not even moving in. They're just buying properties as investments. Some of them are Airbnb. Some of them are just people holding money in Miami in real estate because they think it's a safe way to store their money. Keep in mind that most Latin American people don't believe in the stock markets. They don't believe in U.S. finances. They believe in real estate. So there's not that much education on real estate markets or the stock markets. All that crap just doesn't exist in the mind of Latin Americans, okay? Latin Americans know one freaking thing, and that is real estate. I literally know 2 options for people that are Latin America. That is to have their money cash, literally, I'm talking in Bank of America, or to have their money in real estate. Those are really the 2 main things people are doing right now. They're not getting involved in business investing like they used to in the past because there's too much regulation. People are finding out that as soon as you start making money over here, people copy your idea or they start to compete with you. They steal your idea and they use your own idea to compete with you. So people are realizing there's 2 things to do. You can literally just have your money, millions of dollars in Bank of America. If you don't believe me, you've never met a Latino. Some of these Latinos are going to have $30 million sitting in Bank of America. As ridiculous as that sounds. You got people that just have money cash, and you got people that buy real estate, but they're not investing in the stock markets. They're illiterate when it comes to U.S. financing. All these IRAs and all these 401ks, that doesn't exist in the mind of Latinos. Those things we're just completely illiterate in those types of investments. It's cash money or real estate, and a lot of people have a lot of cash money. They're turning it into real estate, and that's really what's going to continue to drive real estate prices in Miami through the roof, and it will lead to decrease in population. When people tell me right now, oh, we're scared, we're going to stop buying in Miami because the population is decreasing, I'm like, dude, why is the population decreasing? Is the population decreasing because people can't afford to live in Miami anymore and they're leaving? To an extent, yes. Like, dude, this isn't the Rust Belt or something, you know? It's not like Miami is like part of the Rust Belt and all of a sudden Miami's going to get abandoned. Yes, you have less people living in Miami because people are selling their houses, and the people that are buying the houses are not living in them for one reason or another because they're more of an investment than an actual home. Once you understand that, you understand that in the next few years, if Miami loses 3% of its population, that's not really something to worry about. You'll find other things to worry about. The fact that Miami's incomes are the worst of any large city in Florida, even though it's the most expensive. If that wasn't the problem, nothing else is. Out of all of Florida's large cities, Miami's income is the lowest by far. Yet, despite having the lowest incomes, it's the most expensive city. If that in itself didn't tell you that the people that were in Miami were doing everything they could to stay there, nothing will. But it's getting to the point now, HOA fees are increasing, the overhead's increasing, and now people really don't have a freaking option. They really do have to leave Miami because there's no other option. Do these people want to leave Miami? They don't. Are they really going to be happy with the city they moved to? Most of them, if they make a good decision, will be okay. But if they end up in Sebring or some other little freaking place that sucks, they're probably going to freaking regret it, bro. And once you move out, you're never going to afford to move back in. I guarantee you that. Because I don't care what you tell me, decreasing population, this and that, Miami's not going to get any cheaper. I wouldn't join that speculation because things could level out in Latin America and people could take their money back to their home countries or whatever, you know. I'm personally not going to speculate into that market because the people that are doing this in Miami are not doing it out of desire. They're doing it out of necessity. They think their countries are going to crap, so they're putting all their money in Miami. So it's not like those people have an option. They're being forced to do that. And that is why I personally wouldn't put my money on that train. I would be like cautious of Miami. And then there's money laundering. You know, you got all these food trucks, you got all these car washes, you got all these storage units. You have a lot of money laundering going on in the state of Florida. A lot of this money from Latin America needs to be laundered. And there's a lot of money laundering going on in Miami, which means that when you're competing with a business, you're not competing with a business that's trying to make money. You're competing with a business that is already calculating that they're going to lose a percentage of their profit because they're just laundering the money, which means that Miami is infinitely, it's almost impossible to make money. You know, let's say you have a business in Miami and you're competing with a business across the street. And the business across the street, they're not looking to make a 13% profit. They're looking at taking a 10% loss because they're doing money laundering. So there's so many people laundering money in Miami that most of your business models are going to fail because you're competing with people who are not designing their businesses for a profit. They're designing their businesses to launder money, which means that there's so much volume of the market that it's just infinitely going to take a loss no matter what. And that makes business in Miami difficult. Miami is a very difficult city to do business in because all these people that are laundering money are doing nothing more than just making the wheel spin, knowing that they're going to lose money while the wheels are spinning. That's to accomplish their goal. Thus, how are you going to compete a legitimate business with a business that's trying to launder money? It makes your business fail. And then the people coming from New York want to do the same three businesses. They want to open up a vape shop, they want to open up a pizza place, or they want to open up, it's like they only know three different things. And then you have, like in Cape Coral, Florida right now, they're having to put more moratoriums on certain types of businesses because it's like, hold on now, we already got 500 Italian restaurants, we already got 500 pizza places, we already got 500 car washes, we already got 500 storage units. They're starting to put moratoriums on these people because it doesn't make any sense. It's an oversaturation of the same businesses. Take the food trucks in Fort Myers, Florida, or the Latin restaurants in Fort Myers, Florida. There were so many people doing the same exact thing that everybody systematically had to fail. And the only thing that makes sense is that they have to be laundering money, because how could so many people engage in one single activity that clearly is oversaturated? They're meant to fail. The only logical conclusion is they gotta be laundering money. And you get to the point where you go to some of these cities like Cape Coral, Miami, Fort Myers, and every single business is the same exact thing. It doesn't make sense. And the people that are moving in from Chicago and New York, they all, like, you wouldn't believe how many people I've had call me and tell me, Jose, I'm in Chicago or I'm in New York. I want to open a smoke shop or a cigar shop or a pizza shop. And I'm like, in Cape Coral, I'm like, do you know how many people are already doing the same exact thing? The same thing happened in Southwest Florida. I had a junk removal business. Then next thing I knew, there was more junk removal businesses than there was junk. It's like now the people that have the most money can starve out the people that don't have money. And in that process, it becomes unprofitable for everybody, which means if you have a small investment, you can't really compete with somebody that has a larger investment. That's why I tell people, don't think you're a real estate investor. A lot of these people move to Florida and then they want to buy real estate. I'm like, what makes you think that you are a competitive investor when you only have $500,000? There's people that have $20 million. Who do you think is going to win that battle? And that's why a lot of people right now in Florida are finding that they're losing money, the HOA fees and the insurance costs and all these complications. Not only is it blind and stupid money, but it's people doing the same exact thing. And then you got all these YouTubers, when they're saying move to Florida, everybody says move to Florida. Now they're saying leave Florida, everybody's leaving Florida. But none of them even captured the idea that, one, the people that were making this whole thing work wasn't even the Chicagos, the New Yorkers, and the Bostons. It was really the Latin American money. And now with SB 1718, for example, you're starting to see the economical impacts of the state's laws, because the thing about Florida is they want to believe that they are 90% of the economical impact, but in reality, they're only like 10 or 15% of the economical impact. In other words, they overvalue what they believe is important, and they completely disregard many aspects of the economy, like, let's say, the global scale of things. People in the United States only see what's happening in America. Like, people, oh, here in America, it's Biden's, Biden did, Biden this, Biden that. Bro, do you realize that the housing market crunch is a global problem? Finances right now, interest rates, all these things are on a global level. But then you have these pea-brained people that think, oh, Biden's the problem. It's Biden. Bro, no, it's not Biden. These are global problems. The thing that's happening in Colombia is happening in Argentina. It's happening in Sweden. It's happening in Spain. These are global problems. But for some reason, people here in the United States are so pea-brained that they think that they can implement a regional law or a regional, they're able to regionally control a global problem. They think if they re-secure the border, then all of a sudden, if, deport people and secure the border, and that's going to solve the housing crisis, it's going to solve all these problems that we're facing in the United States. But they fail to notice that the tighter they put the bottleneck in that border, the more pressure it puts in other places, the more it leads to chaos. Like right now, Haiti's in chaos, Cuba's in chaos, Salvador's in chaos, Mexico's in chaos. Now, all these countries in Latin America are on fire because you created a bottleneck at the border, and now the more crazy things get in Latin America, the more people are withdrawing their money from Latin America and investing in the United States, which means it makes life even more difficult here. These are global problems. You cannot implement a regional solution to a global problem. People in the United States just simply don't understand how globalization works. They think that the United States is the only freaking important figure, and that's not how it works. Many of the problems that we're seeing with housing costs in the United States and with interest rates, all these things are global problems. You can't implement a regulation in Florida that's all of a sudden going to resolve. It's like it doesn't work. You're missing the picture. It's like walking into a house and noticing that there's mold on the wall, and you think that by replacing the drywall, it's going to fix the problem. Well, the real problem is that there's a leak in the roof. You can replace the drywall, but that's only going to be a superficial and temporary patch because you're handling the symptoms, you're not handling the cause. But basically, the reality of the situation with the housing crunch here in Florida is the following. As long as there's trouble in Latin America, more money is going to be pushed into the state of Florida, and it's going to become more unaffordable, and it's going to become unreasonably unaffordable. Because when people put their money somewhere and it's not working, their country's in turmoil, they're going to lose it all. They would much rather take a 30% loss in Miami on real estate than they would to lose it all in their country to a war. And then people in those countries don't have IRAs. They don't have traditional stocks and investments. They just believe in cash money and real estate. And thus you have these like abnormally large amounts of money. Like I recently met somebody from Venezuela who had $36 million cash, and he just wanted to buy a $7 or $8 million house. Crap, he thought the more expensive the house, the better. And he was having trouble finding a house expensive enough in the city he wanted because he just had so much money that he just thought he just had to buy the most expensive house because he didn't want to have the money in liquid cash for some reason. So it's just a really weird, and again, they might be coming from a country where the money in that country depreciated greatly. So if they're afraid of cash depreciating, then they want to turn all their money into real estate. And it's a never-ending battle of like global issues that contribute to people just buying real estate in Florida, cash, unreasonably large amounts of money. And most people in the United States, their brains are just too narrow-minded to comprehend where all this money and where all these investments are coming from. And then they go on YouTube and they hear some stupid YouTuber, oh, Chicago, New York, people are moving to Miami, people are moving here, people are moving there. And that's 10% of the real estate movement. But 60% of the real estate money might be money laundering, or might be people fleeing another country. Alright guys, so that is today's video on the internal migration that we are seeing in the state of Florida. We're seeing people getting pushed out of South Florida into Central Florida, and people in North Central Florida are moving into the Carolinas. They're getting pressured out of South Florida. Many people believe that snowbirds are part of that pressure, and they are along coastal communities, along the beach. But in general, when people like me and you are going to buy a house, that pressure sometimes comes from places that we may not even be aware of. And again, if Latin America continues, wars, conflicts, border conflicts, all these things keep happening in Latin America, you can expect people to flood Florida with money, as those countries do have strong economies. And not only do they have strong economies, a lot of these people's money, it's not debt like in the United States. It's not stocks like in the United States. These people have literal cash money, and a lot of them are bringing it back to launder it as well. So it's an endless influx of money that's going to make life more difficult and more expensive and complicated for all of us here. And when you start and you're ignoring the cause of the problem, you're ignoring the roof leak, you're trying to fix the drywall patch. So the problems are not being addressed. Most people aren't even aware what the problem is. They don't understand where the pressure is coming from. They think it's Biden, which is ridiculous. Things started to get expensive around 2015, 2016. Biden wasn't president then, so how could he have caused the chain of events? But that's the stupidity of Americans. They don't understand economics. They don't study anything. The Republicans want to blame everything on the Democrats want to blame everything on the Republicans, and neither one of them know anything. The beauty about the United States is that everybody has an opinion, everybody's allowed to vote, but very few people understand anything. But that's really what's leading to the problem that we're having in Florida. And quite literally, I don't understand if Latin America is going to get any better. You know, people in the Dominican Republic want to leave because of the violence. People in Cuba are starving. Haiti's upside down. The Salvadorians are fleeing to other countries, and a lot of the gangsters from Salvador are all over now. People from Venezuela are trying to come to the United States. They're going to Argentina. They're going to Chile. There's border disputes between a bunch of countries, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, all the Latin America's never been like this. There's never been a situation in our modern history where there's so much conflict and so many crises in Latin America. And that's going to reflect here in the United States. Don't forget Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of money in those countries as well. And a lot of those people came here as well. You step out a little bit more outside the Americas and you realize that even these conflicts in Russia are affecting the real estate market here. People from Russia and Ukraine and from Europe are grabbing their money and they're putting it in the United States because they're thinking, well, if things go to crap in our country, here's this global power that probably isn't going to go to crap. So if we invest over here, we're going to be safe. So the crazier things get in the world, the more people are going to want to be in the United States. And with immigration policies, you might, I'm not saying you will, but you might be able to keep people from coming to the United States, but you probably cannot keep their money from coming over here. And really that money is what's going to take a house off the market or, bring up prices. And again, different conflicts, different people going in different places. It's also noteworthy too that it used to be the Sun Belt was growing, but now a lot of people that are fleeing other countries are no longer going to the typical Houston, Los Angeles, New York, Miami. A lot of them now are going into like the upper Northeast around the Great Lakes, places like Ohio, Indiana, New York, Michigan, up that way, the old Rust Belt. A lot of people are taking their money up that way, which areas that, today we call it the Rust Belt, places that are empty. Well, now a lot of that money's heading in that direction. And this isn't people, a lot of people haven't caught on to that now. But when you look at immigrants coming into the United States, where are they going? It used to be Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. Well, not anymore. Now a lot of these immigrants that are coming into the United States are moving up into Ohio, what we call the Rust Belt. It's probably because the South has become so racist, has become so hostile to outsiders, but the Northeast, that area up there, doesn't have the same issues. The state's laws aren't going in that direction. People's sentiments aren't going in that direction. Crap, if you have a town, that's a Rust Belt town, it's going to crap, and here come these people, and now they start investing in your town and fixing buildings and stuff. That's a lot of incentive for those people not to care because, they're not. It's no longer about competition anymore. Like here in Florida, we look at it as competition, but in places in the Rust Belt that are going to crap, these people are saying, well, it's better to let these people come and save our towns, save our communities, than to let it all go to crap. So people are finding a more welcoming environment for investing in those types of places. So if you go on the internet and you start to look up analytics on new arrivals, into the United States and where they are going to, part of it, you might have heard, they're giving immigrants money or whatever. Part of it is kind of that, where the United States, on a federal level, might be kind of pushing people into those areas. In other words, the United States is, here's all this, they're looking at it. This isn't something people are talking about on news networks and stuff, but possibly what's happening on a federal level is that people are saying, these immigrants are coming, this money is coming. If it all goes to Miami, New York, whatever, then you have a bottleneck, you have this incredible inflation. But look at the state of Ohio. We got this Rust Belt over here. Why not, instead of, letting all these people drive up the prices in these states like Miami, Let's let them move to areas where we actually need people, but Americans aren't willing to move there. Is it possible that on a federal level, the United States government's looking at, okay, let's let these people do this thing over here? I'm not sure. But if you start to look at where new arrivals are going, a lot of them are going to places like that. So when somebody does turn themselves into U.S. Customs, federal government is smart. They look at the person and they say, okay, this person looks like a criminal, looks like a delinquent. We're going to look at their background back in their home country. And if they look like a piece of crap, we're going to deport them. But if the person looks like a promising person, the reason they're coming seems legit, they might put them under observation, see how they behave. And they decide, okay, this is somebody we're actually going to keep. But then they might say, okay, if they're thinking about going to Miami, we may not want to put them there. But if they're thinking about going to Youngstown, Ohio, then perhaps, the U.S. federal government is kind of stopping people based on where they're going. If you're going to a part of the country where they need you, then the federal government is allowing that. So you also have to understand that the federal government is kind of aware of the problem, and they're probably in some way or another aware of who's coming over here, what their intentions are, what their net worth is. Are they a business-minded person? And they're vetting these people. They're saying, okay, you're good, you're bad, you're going here, you're going there. And a lot of times they're letting these people enter the United States because it seems like what their plan is benefits the United States. But that's not something that's published. That's not something that's done in the open. But there's a logic to the migrants that are coming, where they're going, where they're ending up, and what type of person they are. Some people off the bat get the deportation, and other people, depending on what their plans are, depending on where they're going, the federals are probably like, okay, this person, let's put them over there in Ohio, put them in Pennsylvania, some Rust Belt town. Chances are that is where we need people. So there's a way to control that. Like there are niches in the economy where it's beneficial, but in the state of Florida, it's kind of out of control. Like take the recent law of SB 1718. This is an immigration law that, for the most part, a lot of people left Florida if they were illegal. But if they owned real estate, they didn't get rid of it. So now you have this real estate here in Florida. They might be renting it or letting a family member stay there, this or that. But it leads to the same problem, which is unoccupied housing or an investment in the United States that isn't being utilized. You have a lot of houses that are just sitting there empty while people can't afford housing. And laws like SB 1718 on a state level contribute to aggravating that problem. But real estate appreciation happens along the beach and in nice suburban areas, new areas. If you're investing into a Rust Belt town, depreciation is going to hit you no matter what. So in that aspect, they're taking a loss. And in that case, even though they're investing money, it's kind of like the same deal as money laundering, where you're still taking a loss. And for a lot of these people that are doing that, they're really taking a loss because that's not where the appreciation is. Where real estate appreciation happens and where it doesn't happen, it's a hustle all to itself. And in that aspect, minority communities are constantly taking a hit. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that there's been a few circumstances where an African American community gentrifies and some people pick up some appreciation. Take Atlanta, for example. But for the most part, where minorities end up in the United States, they take the absolute most brutal loss on depreciation. And in a case like Tampa, where all the Latinos moved to the suburbs and all the investment landed in the inner city, you could say that the script got flipped, and it's actually the minority communities that are going to take the win on depreciation. So I feel like in a city like Tampa, it's actually Latinos that are taking the upper hand on depreciation and getting a win out of it. But in Miami, up to this point, it's been good for Latinos. So Miami is kind of like Atlanta, where a lot of minority communities got benefited. But going back to places like in the Rust Belt, those Latinos that end up in the Rust Belt type of places, they're definitely going to take a loss on depreciation. And it's just common sense. And that's another aspect of competition, that if you have $200,000, you got to buy an old decrepit house. If you got $500,000, you can buy a new house. Which one of those two investments do you think is going to be most profitable? Probably the new house on the appreciation end of things. Now, if you bought a house many years ago affordably, and now you can rent it for very high, return on investment from rental income could actually far outweigh any type of appreciation value. In fact, many times slumlords don't care about appreciation of their property. All they care about is return on investment. So if all of a sudden right now the real estate prices were to cool off or just kind of level off for a while, in that case, people who are investing with a look to appreciation are going to get burned, because the overhead's going to kill them. Because no matter what, the more expensive the property is, the higher the property taxes, the higher the insurance costs. People who are investing with a view to appreciation are going to take a loss if prices level out. But people who invest like slumlording type of places, those types of people, if things level out, they're still rolling in bank steady, which is good for them. The problem is, how do you know moving forward whether it's going to be the appreciation that's going to keep banking, or if prices level out, overhead continues, then, it's all a crapshoot. It really is. So many of these stupid YouTube channel having investing channels focus so much on which cities are growing. They're always chasing the appreciation. It's appreciating here. It's appreciating there. They're so focused on nothing but pure appreciation. That's the only thing they're looking at, right? Which cities are appreciating. But really, it's not so much the place, but the time. And a lot of people today are still looking with a view to appreciation. Return on investment is tricky, because if you're buying at a high and things level out, you can't rent it. You're definitely taking a loss. I mean, there's people that did that in like 2005, 2006, 2007, and here we are, I don't know, many years later, and they still are not able to get their initial investment out. People paid $80,000 for an empty lot in Lehigh Acres back then, and today they still can't get $24,000 for it. 15, 20 years later, they're still holding on to this piece of land saying, when am I ever going to get this money back? When you look at a place like Naples, Florida, so much of the real estate profits in a place like Naples revolve around the idea of appreciation, okay? You buy a house for $1 million, you sell it for $3 million. Your overhead was tremendous, but, you made a huge profit. In a place like Naples, Florida, that's how historically in like the last few decades, a lot of people have done really well with Naples, because it's a market based around appreciation. And now the buyers are people that are moving into Naples because they can't afford Miami anymore. So now people are investing with the view of living in these properties. And if people are looking at buying these properties to live in them long term, it'll create a crunch in the real estate market in Naples that really didn't exist before, because Naples was a more transient real estate market. People would buy a house, it'd be a beach home. If it made sense, it's better than being up north, so they would flip it, make the money, and run with it. Well, now, when you look at Naples, if people from Miami who've lived in South Florida for so many years are buying houses in Naples, even if those houses appreciate, they may not sell them. And it could create a situation in Naples where inventory becomes almost impossible to get a hold of, somewhat like could happen in Sarasota. Because keep in mind that now it's no longer the retired and the snowbird that are looking at buying these houses in Naples. It's people that are leaving Miami, and they're going to buy a house in Naples, and even though it's expensive, they're still getting a deal because it's cheaper than Miami. And with that, I think Miami is going to become some type of Atlanta. It's just Miami, I think crime is just going to become a huge problem in the future, because all these vacant properties owned by people in different countries, some of them are doing money laundering, some of them are just bailing out of another country It just really lends itself for all types of weird crap. And really, that's what the snowbirds were doing in Naples. When you think about people that they have a second home here in Naples, and they're in it once a month, and these homes here in Naples, that's exactly what these people from up north were doing. The problem now is that the Latin American money and the foreign money is by far greater than people in the United States. So now people that are holding on to these investments in Florida are no longer snowbirds. It's people from other countries, and perhaps they are going to make a huge amount of money on appreciation. And that's why I tell people, if you're buying real estate in Florida, don't buy some old condo that's decrepit. Buy like a brand new house. Buy something that somebody's going to want. Somebody with money is going to want. Don't buy like an old decrepit house, because what's happening now is that if you're buying an old decrepit house, it costs $300,000. Well, if you fix it up, you're going to have $500,000 to fix up an old house, and on paper, it's still an old house. And well, it's a very long and elaborate way of saying that the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poor. And if you think it's disparaging now for the average working class person who doesn't have real estate, if this trend continues in Florida, it is going to become exponentially more difficult for the working class person. This situation will not come to an end. It's just going to get worse and worse. And that right there is really not a pretty scenario. But at least now you kind of understand what are the driving forces behind this situation, because a lot of people just simply don't understand what's behind it all. It doesn't seem like it's going to get better for the working class person. And if you do get your hands on real estate, it might be older real estate, it might be decrepit properties, and then you're just going to take a loss. In other words, to make a profit, it's going to be the people at the top are going to make that profit. The people at the bottom are just going to have a much more difficult time. Not only making a profit on real estate, it's just you're just going to take a loss on real estate no matter what. It's going to be where the average working class person is going to get eaten alive to live in a piece of crap house, where the rich person could possibly have huge view to appreciation. And that could mean, again, for me and you, regular class people, difficulties obtaining properties, and only people who have real big net worths are going to be able to be players that have a profit in the real estate world. The average person, it's just going to become a burden. Whether you're renting, it's going to be a problem, and whether you're buying, it's going to be a problem. And if you end up in a condo because it's more affordable, the HOA fees, the new requirements, it'll almost cost you more money to have an old house than have a new one. And that's by design, to make sure that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video.